But for my viewers out there who might be in all sorts of regions and aren't here in Silicon Valley or connected, what is the best way for them to get introduced to NEA and get on someone's horizon like yourself? Do they still need an introduction, or is there another efficient way for them to get in touch?
Well, an intro certainly helps. It raises it up in the funnel. I used to have something called pitchben.com where you could do a 1-minute pitch, and I promised a 1-minute response. It became a little overwhelming, and I did promise a response, so we pulled that down for now.
Yeah.
I'm considering doing an open mic day where people can come pitch in a relatively abbreviated form, no matter who they are or where they're coming from. They would still have to physically be here. Generally speaking, though, what I will say is I read all my emails. I don't have an outsourced human. My EA does not read my emails. I read them all, including the ones that, well, I don't know if LinkedIn forwards the stuff anymore, but generally speaking, I read my Twitter DMs as an example. My only point is I will read them, and if I'm interested, I'll respond, but I don't feel obligated to respond to an unsolicited email. So my reading the email and not responding is an indication of a lack of interest, but I do read them. So, yeah.
Should people, if they email you, is there something they need to do? What's the best way to format it? Should they attach a deck or not needed at all?
I mean, so I look at it as when I talk to my own entrepreneurs about outreach, there's a 99% chance anybody will read the headline, the subject, if I send it to them. There's then a 90% chance that if I send it to them, they'll read the first line if I'm pitching you. And then it goes down every single line. Make the point in the header, right? So if it's, we're a cat walking startup, thank you, delete. Not going to fund cat walking, I can say that categorically, so not need to worry there. But I'll tell you what doesn't work. Long, rambling lead-ins. Hi, Ben, I know your time is really valuable, and I don't want to waste it, but I thought you might be interested in. All those words are a waste.
Just skip it. Here's
yeah,
what we
just,
do. Here's
we
that.
are a cat walking startup, period. Okay, delete. We are the new version of sliced bread using dirt that people can eat. Probably not.
That.
I mean, no, I'm actually cat walking startup was a pitch.
Okay.
So I laughed out loud on that one. I'm sorry. It just seems, how do you walk a cat? I don't even know that. So if you think about what you need to deliver, I'll give you 3 golden rules. Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough.
Okay.
You have to have an elevator pitch. You have to have a 1-line elevator pitch that says succinctly what you do. If you don't have that, you're not ready to pitch anyway. Put that in the subject line. Yep. I guess 2, Einstein's point, and 3, if you think about a great deck or a great explanation of what you do, who, what, when, where, why, how, and how much. Who's doing it? How are you doing it? Why are you doing it? Who's buying it from you? How much are they paying you? When did you start doing it? Right? That's about it. It's 6 things. And less is more.
Okay.
Edit, edit, edit.
And then for the first part of it, you said introduction. So how do you assess the quality of introduction? And what's the advice from someone who wants to reach out to you, thinks they have a startup and they can articulate it to you? How should they think about getting introduced to you? Do you have criteria? Do you have a way of kind of quantifying the power of an introduction?
Sure. Well, the better I know the person and the better I know their expertise, the higher it goes. My founders, right at the top.
Okay. Yep.
Other investors, highly variable depending on their skill and what I think their goal
founders
is.
Founders at the top. Founders, any founder that you've invested in, or founders that have had an exit? Is there, do you discriminate?
Sure. I mean, I've got 85 founders over the last decade plus. So amongst those, there are different levels of, let's put it this way. If I funded a founder and they did a horrific job of everything they did, failed miserably.
Introduction might reflect on that. So
what's their judgment
has to basically think carefully about who they're getting the introduction from. That might perhaps be a negative stamp on them, do you think? If they get an introduction from someone who you really didn't respect as an entrepreneur or another investor.
I don't know. I wouldn't say negative. I'd say neutral. Neutral. So certainly you want to go as high up as you can.
Better to get the intro than to cold email.
Yes.
Doesn't matter who the intro's from, try to get one.
Within reason.
Ideally someone who knows you, ideally an entrepreneur you funded who did great. What's below the founders? You said the investors. So let's talk about that level.
So you've got, depends on what the stage is. So one of the things in venture that's interesting is when one venture capitalist introduces a startup to another venture capitalist, the person on the receiving end always asks why.
Yeah, it's bizarre, right? Why aren't they doing the deal themselves?
Particularly if they're not doing it. Now maybe, like if I'm introducing something to a great seed fund, that makes sense because we're not really that focused on that sector. An angel would be a viable intro to me because they're only going to do a certain round. Maybe they did the pre-seed or the friends and family, and now it's ready for the next level or it's ready for the A. So I tend to take those reasonably seriously, and the better I know that investor, and the better I know their sort of criteria and how they think about the world. Everybody has their own levels of judgment, and you try to learn that and infer from it. And then you've got the ecosystem of support, accountants and lawyers, and those are, I think of those as, again, the quality of the person is going to dictate it more than the firm they came from.
I have a lot of connections within the student community because I started the entrepreneurship societies. I give lectures at universities. Do you find connections and introductions from professors and faculty of any value? Do you get those? So
I know that there are folks inside of NEA that find those highly valuable. That is not a network I have cultivated. So Stanford's nearby, and there's some phenomenal professors there, and I know people respect them enormously and will take their introductions very seriously, and I think that's smart. It's just that I have not done the work to go.
That's a valuable source as well.
Yeah, can be. Again, to the expertise. If the computer science professor shows you the next fragrance company, then you're like, well, okay, but why? Now, if the answer is this is the most tenacious and remarkable person I've ever worked with, then you take that meeting.
Then there's people.
Right.
Got it.